Hello and God bless you. This is Ellen Mongan from Deacon and Deer, and I'm the Deer, and here's my husband, Deacon Pat.
How are
Deer.
you, honey?
I'm doing great. We're really blessed today. We have a special guest, and I want you to introduce him. And I hope every Catholic mom is going to listen up, take notes, and be there today, and invite him to your church or your school or your neighborhood.
Yes, we're pleased to have Dr. Ray Guarendi on our show today. He's a clinical psychologist for over 40 years, a radio host on SiriusXM, channel 130, and he hosts Living Right with Dr. Ray at EWTN. Has given over 3,000 talks and can be found at drray.com, drray.com. And one of the things that's pleased us, because we've read several of his books, is the common sense that he brings, and not so much psychobabble that you tend to see with a lot of psychologists. And he's an author of over 18 books, and today we want to talk about his book, Taught by 10. Well, he's taught by 10 because he has adopted 10 children. Amazing. And he brings that out in the book in terms of, if you read it, the amazing story of anybody. It must be a world record almost in terms of adopting that many children. We think that he is amazing in terms of his willingness and his wife's willingness to adopt these children. And, they must be on their way to sainthood. So
no, I needed the tax deductions.
We've heard that too. So, and one thing that you don't talk a whole lot about in the book is, and Ellen and I were talking about this morning in terms of how the infertility affected you and your wife, and how you dealt with that, because that must have been very difficult when you had to face that.
I had a congenital condition. It was called Sertoli-only cell syndrome. My grandmother was excited that it was Italian, but you'll appreciate this, Deacon, because you're an MD. It was congenital, so I talked to my attorney and I said, "Can I sue my mother?" And he said, "No, the statute of limitations has probably run out." So I told Mom, "This better not happen again." So when I went for testing, they said, "If you ever have any children, you better go on television and talk about it because it's a miracle." And I came home, my wife and I sat down, some tears. She always wanted to have a big family, 4, 5, 6 kids. Sure. And I said, "Well, honey, who knows where that's going to go?" So we said, "Well, we'll try to adopt." Now, back in those days, this was 30 years ago. I started adopting when I was in elementary school. If you were willing to adopt across race, if you were willing to adopt Black or biracial or Hispanic, when you were white, you could adopt much quicker. It's not so much that way now. The babies are in such short supply, if you will, that pretty much anybody's open to any race. So things started happening, and pretty soon, about the 4th or 5th kid, they came to us. And they said, "Are you open to adopt this child?" And I said, "Well, I only adopt in December, because if you adopt in December, you still get the tax deduction for the whole year." I said, "They pay for themselves the first year." So it's kind of like eating potato chips. You always think you can eat one more until you get sick to your stomach.
Right.
And you never stop. We were amazed at because as a team, Pat and I marriage, that we had normal children that were not, challenging in any way. We still felt like it was a full play. I mean, we really did. And our 8th day went to be with Jesus way too soon. So it is amazing the way you teamworked on it. And we liked it because it sounded like, so we thought, honey, we thought your wife was very strong, and that,
yes, Dr. Ray in his book says he raised 10 and his wife raised 11.
He thought that was hilarious. And we did feel, my mom's 97. We actually had a prayer time with her for the last 2 years when she lived with us. And we read the book, any of the books we were reading, and yours was one of the last ones we read. And it was, very good for her too, because she, when you parent children, it's more than what people think. You just have this baby, bring it home, and there's no manual that they send you home with. So you have to just kind of like trial and error. So I really do recommend Dr. Ray for a wealth of knowledge for the women trying to struggle through the early years, especially. He has some wisdom brought with humor and the humor.
With all those children, when did you find time to write all these books?
That's the best question.
Bathroom. I was in the bathroom. You have to lock the
We're
door.
laughing because Ellen's friend, who has 11 children, that's exactly what she said. When do you get your prayer time or whatever? The bathroom.
You feel kind of funny praying to the Lord while you're sitting on the toilet. You're wondering, I don't know, does this go together?
That is
So what would you like people to get out of your book? What do you think is the most important aspect of Taught by 10 in your?
Deacon, we live in a culture that celebrates you having physical relations with anybody you want, anytime you want, any way you want, any amount you want. The only people we give grief to now, and Ellen, it's good that you raised your children, because if you were a mom now, you would be getting grief for having more than 1.86 children. That's your only allotted amount these days.
Right.
So what I would tell parents is, do not listen to the nonsense of the culture that says, oh, how can you handle 3? I can't handle the one I have. They don't realize they're telling you about themselves. They're not telling you about the child.
Right.
I've been around long enough. I know you mentioned that I've had over 40 years as a shrink. Actually, it's 45. I started my first client. I was in kindergarten, so I count that. What I found, many parents, perhaps all of them that I've talked to, have never said, I've never had one say, I had too many children. I've had many say, I wish I would have had more children. So that's the first thing I tell parents. Don't be afraid of this parenting thing. Don't be afraid, how are we going to afford them? Don't be afraid of, what if we can't give enough attention to each child? There's so much neuroticism out there now in parenting that was never there in human history.
Right.
We have ruined the emotional comfort, stability, confidence, authority, resolve of parents.
Amen.
We really have, especially the good ones. The good ones are the only ones who are going to watch your podcast. That's it.
Right.
The bad ones aren't going to watch you. Are you kidding me? The good ones are going to be the ones who pick up one of my books. The bad ones don't care. And we've ruined the good parents. They think if they sit him on the pot for 4 minutes too long, he's going to grow up to be a tattooed face motorcycle gang member on Springer, and they named him John because they were hoping it would help in the toilet training.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that when people say, "Oh, it's so difficult for a big family," but if you are wise, and my wife was really wise about training the children up, that as the kids get older, they help with the younger ones, and that also helps them to be less selfish and self-centered when they become adults.
My children charged us $40 an hour to babysit plus benefits. But we negotiated them down from 60. Here's the other thing that parents really struggle with. The biggest thing, Deacon and Dear, how come he's not Dear? You get to be Dear, but he doesn't get to be Dear?
Yes, that's right.
Oh, man.
His nickname's Deacon D, right? That's the name of the show.
The biggest thing they struggle with is authority. They don't have the ability to pull the plug on unruliness. They can't get the child to go to the corner. They can't get him to go to bed early. They can't get him to leave his sister alone. Everything becomes a bicker brawl. Everything becomes negotiation. Everything becomes nagging and reminding. So no wonder they're saying, I wanted to have 4, but I stopped at 2 because I can't handle the 2 I have. Well, a large part of that is you have to have authority. Authority is not jackbooted, kick the door down, punk, I'm here, and you're going to do what I say. No, that's not authority. Authority is, I'm going to make my request, and then I'm going to back it up. And once the kids know that, your parenting becomes so much easier. We had 12, 11, 10, 10, 9, 7, 4, 3, 2 baby at one point. And my wife homeschooled. Which is really pretty good because she only has a 4th grade education. And I told her, I said, honey, just stay 1 week ahead in the answer book. That's all you got to do. Just stay 1 week ahead in the answer book. She had the ability to simply say, get a book and sit down, please. That was it. That's how she pulled the plug. Get a book and sit down, please. And they knew if they didn't do that, Well, first of all kinds of things are going to happen. You're going to go to your room. You're going to lose all kinds of privileges. When mom says, get a book and sit down, you better get a book and sit down, or all kinds of consequences are going to befall you. Once they knew that, and once she had the ability to do that, she could pull the plug at any time on that chaos.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I see as a big problem with parents is they want their kids to be their friends.
Mhm.
And if you insist on, oh, they have to be my friend, you've lost the war in a sense. And they will manipulate you and do all kinds of things. One of our kids one day said, well, I'm going to run away from home. You know how we handle that? You want us to pack your bag? She got about a block away and turned around and came back home. The other one is, oh, I'm going to call the child abuse people. I said, here's the phone. You want to go call them?
They'll take you. They won't take me.
Yeah.
No, but
So you can't let them manipulate you. And you know what? When they get to be adults, they will be your friends.
that's right. That's right.
Well, my dad was tougher than that, Deacon. When I threatened to run away, my dad said, take all your clothes off. You came into my world naked. You're not taking my stuff with you.
In the
then he
dead of
said,
right?
get the braces off too. We're going to use those for your brother.
Yeah.
It's like, I want to say something though. I think that if you don't get the authority down at 2, when they say I'm the mom or I'm the dad, and they're not, then you're never able to get it at teen level. You have to start the authority. We're authoritarian parents. We thought we were in the middle, but we're kind of like, nope, I said it. That's how it is. And we never had
You used to be, Ellen, you used to be in the middle. You're not in the middle anymore because the whole culture has shifted. The whole culture has shifted to this kinder, gentler, what they think is kinder and gentler, and it ends up being uglier because you get frustrated.
They don't really care about children.
Yes, I talk.
Children are a nuisance. Children are almost gone back to centuries ago when children were not even considered valuable.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I tell parents, go ahead.
Do you think that parents have also lost a vision that we're raising the next generation and we're raising them to be responsible adults? And so by wanting to not be an authoritarian parent, not teach them the word of God and what the Lord has for us, be honest, be kind, all the different virtues and the commands, but they lose the vision. They think they want to do something important like work at Walmart and be the greeter, what I'm saying? So they don't understand that we're doing a work that is given to us by God, vocation of parenting along with.
In your experience, in terms of, do men, are they a big part of this problem in terms of, because I always told my wife, what you do is the hardest job and the most important job, raising those kids.
One of the things I'm hearing from more and more women is that they are the authorities in their home. And the guys are kind of along for the ride. The guys are no noticing it. The guys are, hey, honey, I was that way when I was a kid. I turned out pretty good. And the women are thinking, let's gather the relatives and vote. And I tell the guys, you'd never let another human being talk to your wife the way that child is talking to your wife. So step in there and protect that woman. That's not your mother you're talking to alone. That's my wife. Now you go to your room. I'm going to find out what she wants me to do about this. Of course, I always tell them, you better get permission before you protect. You better get your attorney to sign the paper so that you have permission to protect. But then, in fact, I tell the guys, you protect her. And that does wonders for your marriage. It truly does. Sometimes I give my boys a couple of bucks. I'll say, go give your mother grief. I'll be right down.
Well, I will tell you one story. One of my boys was smart mouthing his mother, and I grabbed him by the collar and I shoved him up against the wall, and I said, you may get stronger and faster than I am, but I'm meaner than you'll ever be.
You got to sleep that sometime. Again. That's right.
And in our home, we honored Pat. When Pat would come, he just like me shows because it makes it sound like, I thought it makes it sound good. But we honored him by, I did homeschool when they were little. I did projects with them at home. And then when he come to the door, we'd all run, Daddy's home, and put a crown on his head.
Well, we joined.
They all respect him. They work for us. My kids think he hung the moon.
We joined a Christian community when the kids were young. And so the community, we had our own school. So that's right. We didn't have to homeschool, but
but they protected a little bit. But then, kids are kids. They're always going to test the limits. And so it brings us to teenagers, Dr. Ray, because you just wrote a new book I heard about teens. Would you like to share a little bit about that? Because then the authoritarian that you give them and teaching them virtue, then when they become a teen.
Yeah, and I think talking to my own kids, in terms of raising their kids, is that we've talked about, the environment is so much more difficult in terms of raising your kids today and protecting teens from themselves, and so it's got to be much more difficult. And what are one of the most difficult challenges that you face as a psychologist in dealing with family situations?
Faith-filled parents who want to raise a 1 in 100 child do not have the culture on their side at all anymore. The culture is completely seductive and antithetical, hostile to raising a virtuous kid, completely. One of the sadder things I see in my office is a parent sitting there with a 15-year-old and says, I don't know who that is. We didn't raise him that way. And I'll say, I believe you, but I think you underestimated what did. So they allowed the culture too much influence way too early. Ellen, the book you're talking about is called Standing Strong. Good discipline makes great teens. And I do 3 things in it. 1, I help parents stand strong against that culture no longer on their side and know that they're not going to be understood by their children and by their relatives and by the people around them and by the culture at large. You have to have enough confidence to know I am doing, in the end, what is going to be the best thing, and I'm going to get heat for it. You have to know that. You can't parent by consensus anymore. 2, children are not automatically hostile when they become teenagers. Where you're sitting, is it safe to say where you're sitting 150 years ago, there was a farm?
Yeah.
Do you suppose that farmer, when his son turned 14, talked to his friends and said, he's a teenager now. I don't think I'm going to get any help out of him. He's just one of them teenagers. No way. He was ecstatic. The boy was bigger and stronger. Absolutely. Teenager was not even a word they used in those days.
Exactly. It's a modern creation.
Exactly. So I talk about the fact that don't fear teenhood. All right. And the third thing I talk about is you got to have quiet, strong, confident authority. You've got to have it. For example, I have a whole chapter on disrespect. And what do you do when this kid rolls his eyes at you? That's very disdainful. Rolling eyes is very disdainful. What do you do when he argues in a nasty way? What do you do about this? I'll ask parents that in my office. I'll say, so when she talks that way to you, what do you do? Well, we tell her, we tell her, you can't talk that way. I say, well, what do you do? Well, she knows, we don't let that happen. What do you do? Well, we get angry. What do you do? He said, by about the 5th, what do you do? They realize they don't do anything. They do this, they yap. Okay. Yeah. So I teach them how to establish consequences. And here's probably the biggest thing I give parents in a book like that. One of the things the experts do, the experts as a rule don't like discipline. They think discipline is just an autocratic, overbearing, you're the big person stifling the little person. They don't like it. So what tends to happen is when a parent tries to discipline a child, say, for example, they say, Oral, that's disrespectful. You need to write me a 300-word essay, handwritten apology. Now, most kids, believe it or not, this is kind of sad. Most kids are going to refuse that. They're going to resist. They're going to argue. They're going to look at the parent like, what are you talking about? I didn't do anything. What do you do then? What do you do? And there's a technique in the book that I talk about called blackout. Blackout means that if I give you a legitimate consequence, whatever it is, go lay down in your bed, give me an hour's worth of labor, define dictionary words, chores, whatever it is. If you refuse, immediately I put you on blackout. Blackout is complete cessation of every perk and privilege you have. That means everything. Your daughter's curling iron is gone. Stuffed animals are gone. Outside is gone. Any kind of technology is gone. favorite shirt is gone. Money supply is gone. That means you pack your own lunch for school. All transportation is gone. That means you can't go anywhere. You can't go to practice. Nothing happens until I get that essay. Now, most parents will say, well, how long do I have to do this? And I say, well, until you get the original consequence, which I suggest is more because you got resistance the first time around. Blackout works phenomenally well. It works unbelievably well with a 5-year-old. A 5-year-old, stuffed animals gone, toys gone, coloring books gone, outside gone, dessert gone, friends gone, playing at grandma's house gone, everything gone. And you just simply say, I didn't get my corner yet. And most 5-year-olds within a half an hour will go to the corner and stand there quietly until you say, okay, time to come out, son. It's beautiful. It works beautifully if a parent does it. Gets you authority real quick.
That's so important too, because we had a situation, one of our bright child, our child bright, but he is now a nuclear physicist.
Nuclear.
He's
He's a medical physicist.
It wasn't for me. But anyways, he decided in high school he wouldn't do his English. So of course he was failing. He was just gonna get by. And so I went to talk to the teacher, right, to kind of help him out to get some extra credit. And the teacher was like hiding under a desk, like I was scary. I still laugh about it today because I'm really little and I'm going. And so then Pat said, if you don't pass English, you're gonna have to take it during summer school and pay for it yourself. But
he had some funds that he had gotten from inherited from his grandfather, and I just said, okay, you're going to have to do this in the summer, take the class, and you pay for it.
And he got like a 98 or 99 test course. He knew the material.
It was a miracle.
That's how you stand strong and not say, well, the parents have to stand strong together, doctor. I'm sure that you all do, because you have to make, like, I can't go, I'm going to go ask dad. And then dad says, okay, let her go. We stood stronger than we do now with adult children. They can outsmart us more.
Do you find as you get older, it gets harder to be the disciplinarian that you were in some ways? Just because, one of the things we found with our 2 youngest kids is the energy it takes, just didn't have as much energy. But one of the things I think it's important, and in your experience, when you're even talking to people of faith, is to understand that this child belongs to God. And you are there to take care of and raise that kid up so that kid can have a relationship with God. Do parents seem to get that or understand that, even people of faith?
I think they do. The problem is, how do you translate that into action? All right. What am I going to do as a parent to teach you those virtues? For example, simple rule. Let's say you go to a restaurant and the kids are all under 10 and you have a rule. The rule is you have to say please and thank you to the server without being prompted. The parent's not going to say, what do you say? What do you say? What's the magic word? Or you don't get the food and you have to hope that the server comes back. And that was one of our simple rules. Now, how did it work? Well, a good part of the time, there was an elderly couple sitting somewhere near us that when we got ready to leave, the server told us, you've been paid for. And I was like, how'd that happen? Well, there was an elderly couple watching your children and they couldn't believe their manners. And I wanted to say, well, that's because they weren't going to get food if they didn't say please and thank you. But they didn't know that. And so just those kind of tiny little standards that you have. For example, we had a standard that if you lie, automatic, if you lie, minimum 1 day blackout, no matter what. So that means everything is shut down except reading. Everything. You go to bed early. You get nothing of perk or privileges, minimum 1 day. That's for a mild lie. Okay. We had another rule that you cannot mistreat a sibling in any way. You cannot call a name. You cannot taunt. You cannot put down. You cannot push. If you do, there'll be consequences. You're going to do her chores for the next 3 days. Or you're going to write 25 nice things about your brother for calling him that. Oh, they're not 25 nice things about him. Make them up. I do with your father. So,
well, as we talked about before about corporal punishment, we believed in it, and there were 3 rules. One, if you did something that was dangerous for you, the child, you would get spanked. If you did something to harm one of your siblings or somebody else, you got spanked. Or, and the third was direct disobedience. You know, kid looks you in the eye and like, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do. Those were the 3 rules that we had.
And you know, our sweet little children would do that. They look us right in the eye. We didn't come do it. We had, because when you have 3 set things, you don't have to deviate. You just know danger, disobedience, or disrespect, and that's it. But we did, this is for little people. This is not like
Right.
high school or just.
Because the part of the rule was, is this really changing and improving behavior? If it's not improving behavior, then you got to do something else, right?
Well,
It's
the
very-
thing about that is, now the experts would have attacked you, Deacon. The
Of
experts would
course, I know that.
They would have said, oh, let's see what you're doing here, Deacon. So if that child hits another child, then you're going to hit your child. Oh, Deacon, what a mixed message. What kind of message are you sending? That's what they say. Now, the way I respond to that, I respond to that in one of the books. I say, first of all, those are 2 topographically, that's a fancy psychology word, different things. The one, the child is just being ill intent aggressive. That's what they're doing. They want their way. They're going to be ill intent aggressive. Your response is measured, and it's designed to teach something, and it is designed to stop future episodes of ill intent aggression. Completely different context.
Right.
It may look the same on its surface, but the whole behavior is measurably different.
Right. And the other part of what we did is after the spanking and the child was taken apart from all the kids alone, they would be disciplined, and then they would say, we would tell them, you have to ask forgiveness.
And they had to go back.
And then we would forgive them and hug them.
Pray for them. But it worked well in ours because we had a Christian community and everyone was disciplined the same way. We're now associate members, I am. So, but it was really good to raise an environment that all the parents are on board. You know, it makes it easier.
So
not perfect.
Sounds like, in part of what you're saying is that parents need to try, I know it's difficult, but try to find like-minded parents.
When the Lord sent out the disciples, he sent them out 2 by 2 because he knew even one other person besides you gave you a lot more strength.
Right.
And that's what I do say to parents. When you feel the culture is besieging you in every way you think and everything you try to teach your child, you better get somewhere, somehow with people who think like you do, so you don't have the constant temptation to think, I'm crazy. What is wrong with me? I'll just give you a small example on this. Parents will say to me, what's the one thing I can do, the one single thing I can do that can sabotage my parenting more than anything else? I say, well, that's very simple. Get them a smartphone and get it early. The average age of a smartphone is now 9 years of age.
Mm.
So if you hold out to 13, which is still way too early, you're in the bottom 5%. So 95% of kids are going to have a smartphone at age 13, and you're in the 5% trying to go against that. And your kid is looking at you like, how can all those people be wrong and you be right? And that's where the kind of strength that a parent has to have. I've always said this, if my kids go astray, I want it to be because they had to go through me, not because I stepped aside.
That's right.
We told our kids that we know that if you're determined to do something you shouldn't do, you'll find a way. My job is to make it hard for you to do that. And
It's nicely put.
Know that we're praying that you get found out.
And they did. They did
A lot of times.
Because we're in a town we're in Augusta, so it's little. And
well, if you had little girls in your home, that's like a security camera. Little girls are going to tell you everything that everybody else in the home does.
Yeah.
Well, we had one who definitely. So as teens, our rule was when you go out to the movie, and we didn't allow dating except for group dating and group.
Till marriage? No dating till marriage?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Till college.
No, in terms of one-on-one, the idea was until they were out of school, out of high school, because they're on their own anyway. They're making their decisions. But the rule was that you have to tell us where you're going and when you're coming back. And so
And if you're not allowed to see our movie.
one time they went to see a movie, and they would ask, when they got to be juniors, I would give them more choices in terms of movies. And I would say, okay, what movie do you want to go see? And I'd say, I think that's a bad choice, but I'm going to let you make that choice at this point. Anyway, so there was one movie that they talked about seeing. I said, no, don't go see that movie. It's a bad choice. And so they came back and said, oh yeah, blah, blah, blah. Well, a friend had seen them.
Mhm.
We found out about it, and the son lied. And the daughter said, oh yeah, we went and saw that movie.
He turned separate rooms again. We thought this door still is the fault, and then the son is still, we call it, we're not gonna say, because they know who they are.
We're
It's
not
just
mentioning
one's a
names.
people pleaser and one is doesn't care if she gets in trouble. You know, Dr. A, parenting is so awesome, but I do want to touch 1 minute on this because I don't want them to go away thinking that you can't have a strong parenting if you don't have a strong marriage. And this is called it's backwards, simple steps to a strong marriage. And we, you know, that I really do think in our country, God first, family second, wife before children would be very helpful for people to have more strong marriages, more virtuous kids. And we really have to keep on speaking out on it, even if we're the ones standing forth for the right things, you know. I think it will help our country turn around to respect policemen and priests and all the different areas that we have to have some respect as adults.
think-
Red lights.
As we've talked about, I think one of the things is that a lot of these ideas, the culture, rather than the church transforming the culture, we've let far too many of these ideas deform the church, the body of Christ.
So now he did not answer. Can you talk about the strong marriages of just really a 5 minute thing or 3, because
Well,
they're
but
going to
it-
listen
but-
and they're going to
but-
think, well, I can do this. My
But
husband's not.
his books are trying to
That's right.
countercultural.
That's right. That's what I think. I think that's great because Joshua the prophet stood alone. He saw giants in the land and he said, I'm standing alone. And other people weren't able to stand alone. And then the result is, you know, the giants get you.
Right.
A parent will come in my office totally frustrated by their kid. There is a lot of fighting. There is lack of affection. There is, I can't wait till he goes to bed. So I give them just a couple of simple discipline ideas. I say, do this. They'll come back a couple of weeks later, and half of them will say something like, I can't believe this. It's like I'm living with a different child. He's more affectionate. He's hugging me. He's kissing me. And I said, so those little simple steps had a very cascading effect. Yes, it
Right.
changed a lot of things. That's the idea behind the marriage book. It is 10 very simple things you can do in your marriage that will have a much broader effect than these tiny little things. However, any psychologist will tell you that one of the things you have to overcome to do decent therapy is the client's resistance.
Right.
They may know, you know, Deacon, you were a doctor. You could give them all kinds of great ideas, but you have to know, are they going to do it? And what is their resistance to doing this? That's 80% of that marriage book, which says, all right, these are simple. Here's why you're not doing it. Here are your resistances.
That's
And
right.
spend
Those are
time
very
getting
helpful. Yep.
past those resistances.
You have a workbook for retreats
Oh, that would be great.
for the marriage? I'm serious.
Well,
You know,
I guess just that one.
Diocese. No, Mike would lend towards a retreat for couples, and that's what we'll get with you another time, because we're gonna have to end the show because all 3 of us are just such
Talkers?
enthusiastic. You know, I'm the talker, but I just really enjoyed this show, Dr. Rad. I do want to have you some information given out to have them invite you to their diocese, because I feel like that's where your niche is going to be now in these days that are changing so quickly. Is the people that there's a way that some parents are trying harder than we did, because they really have grasped the faith and they really want to do the right thing. So tell us real quick how to get a hold of you, and then you can give your last words. And we'll go ours.
The easiest way, Ellen, is to go to drray.com, DRRAY.com. That's the website. That is all the books, all the summary of the books. if you want to book a speaking engagement. All of the books on the website are discounted and signed, so we can
Nice.
ship them to you with very
He's
low
on
shipping.
Amazon. Oh, sorry. So we love Amazon, but we really could have done that. We'll do some more. We'll give gifts.
There you go.
That's good to know. So, and then is that it? How to get a hold of you? And then we need to have your last sum up the show. Everyone always sums up the show, and you can take as long as you want, but Dr. Ray's a busy man. We appreciate you coming on. We do. And make Catholic women out there, Catholic moms, please buy some of the books. They're discounted and signed. And I'll be getting a copy myself of all the ones you bought me. That'd be great, right?
Amen.
We'll give one away. Do you want to sum up the show?
Yes. You cannot be afraid to be a parent. If you parent in fear, the things that you most fear are probably going to happen. If you parent with strength and confidence, yeah, you may still have some bumpy rides, but at least you'll be able to say, I did what I thought was best at the time. I am not God. I am not perfect in my judgments. And here's what I tell parents. Even if God came down and whispered instructions into your ear every step of the way, that would still be no guarantee that your children would turn out exactly like you wish, because Jesus couldn't get most people to follow him.
Amen.
That's right. That's very good.
Great words of wisdom.
You get a song.
And yes, in the sense of every child really is God's problem in the end, but you have to do your part and listen to God the best way you can to do the best you can. But every child has free will.
That's right. I went to I've shared this before. I went to a bishop, I think it was a priest from Canada, about Pat and I debate on, if you tramp your child in the way of the Lord, when they get old, they'll not depart. That's a promise from God. And so I said, my husband's a convert. He thinks that they have free choice, which they do. But I believe I train them up all day long, quoting scriptures, singing out loud. We made sure that we tried to teach them virtue. And the priest was so wise. I mean, he was a bishop. He said, that's what makes saints out of the parents. So pray hard, work hard. Effort in prayer equals victory in Jesus. And if you make a mistake, there's always hope. You can go to call Dr. Ray. See the answers. And may God bless you, ladies out there. They're in the trenches now. Pat and I are in a place where our kids are all adults, but you're in there, and we're praying for you. We want this next generation to succeed and be godly children for our world to turn around. So thank you, Dr. Ray. We enjoy you every time.
Great words of wisdom.
Great words of wisdom. And we're just going to close with y'all. Call him, write him, and have him come to your parish, and you'll be glad you did. Yes,
Thank you.
we have like this. We don't sing.
This is Deacon and Dear.
Amen. Thank you so much.